Libra dear one, what if I told you that God is bringing someone into your life who will change everything? Not in a year. Not someday. Very soon. And she won't arrive quietly. Her presence will stir something ancient inside you, something you forgot you were carrying. This isn't just another horoscope reading. This is a divine encounter in disguise. A sacred appointment sealed in spirit long before you clicked this video. If you're here, it's because your soul called out. And the universe answered. In this week's reading from October 10th to 16, you are being prepared for a breakthrough disguised as a woman. She may not look extraordinary at first glance. But pay close attention, Libra. She's the turning point. She could be a guide, a mentor, a creative collaborator, or even a stranger who speaks a sentence that shakes the dust off your dreams. This is not a coincidence, it is alignment. A divine whisper disguised as human connection. And while the world may see it as just a meeting, your higher self knows better. Because when God wants to shift your life, He doesn't send instructions. He sends people. And this time, He's sending her. You didn't stumble here. You were led here. And as Scripture reminds us, ask, and it shall be given. Seek, and you shall find. You asked for guidance. And now, this message arrives not just with cosmic insight but with an invitation to step boldly into your next chapter. Under the astrological transits this week, Mercury conjunct Uranus, Venus trine Saturn, and the Sun entering Scorpio, your mind sharpens, your heart steadies, and your soul prepares to remember its voice. The energy is ripe for reconnection, recovery, and radical realignment. And this woman? She's not here to give you permission. She's here to mirror your unspoken power. She is the high priestess in human form, intuitive, silent, luminous. She doesn't need to convince you of who you are. She simply reminds you. And that's enough to change everything. But let's be clear. Where there is light, a shadow often follows. So yes, alongside her, another figure may appear. One who flatters, who promises quick money or false opportunities. Don't rush. Don't sign. Your discernment is your shield. Not every offer is an anointing. Libra, you are being divinely positioned right now not just to receive, but to remember who you've always been. You are not passive in this moment. You are a co-creator with destiny. And before we continue, let me take a sacred pause to say thank you. Truly. Thank you for being here. Every like, every comment, every share, every subscription. It draws you deeper into this soul family called Zodiac Whisper Tarot. Your presence isn't just appreciated, it is honored. Your support fuels this sacred mission to deliver messages that heal, awaken, and activate. Now, I urge you to stay with me until the very end, because what the universe is revealing today is not only timely, it's life-changing. We are about to walk through a divine portal together. But only those who are open can receive the fullness of what's waiting. So tell me, my loyal Libra, what is it that pulled you here today? Comment 777 below if you're ready to receive her and to receive the version of yourself she came to awaken. Let's begin. Sometimes the most life-altering arrivals come without grand announcements. She enters not to impress, but to awaken. The woman who is about to step into your life does not come bearing material gifts or external validation. She brings something much rarer: clarity. In her presence, the parts of you that once whispered from within, your instincts, your dreams, your inner knowing, suddenly begin to speak louder. Her energy is not meant to lead you but to mirror you. She is the reflection of the version of yourself you quietly hoped still existed. The reason she feels so familiar is because she holds up a mirror to the pieces of you that were buried beneath obligations, doubt, and silence. You may have pushed aside certain callings because they didn't seem logical, or you postponed dreams for the sake of stability. Yet now, under this week's celestial blueprint, it becomes clear that logic was never the doorway, intuition was. And this woman activates it like a forgotten key finally found. The cosmic alignments this week aren't just supportive ethereal, sacredly timed. As the sun brushes the intense and penetrating territory of Scorpio, it urges you to explore beneath the surface. This is not a time for superficiality. It's a week of emotional excavation. Scorpio teaches us that transformation is born through honesty, and this woman's presence in your life demands emotional truth. Mercury's alignment with Uranus sends shockwaves through old patterns. Expect unexpected invitations, chance meetings, or long-lost connections to resurface. You might receive a message from someone you once admired, or a simple conversation that hits you harder than you expected. That's Uranus delivers the twist. And if you're willing to stay open, what seems random may in fact be orchestrated divine timing. At the same time, Venus forms a trine to Saturn, anchoring your values in something sustainable. This is the moment to ask, who and what do I want to build with? This woman may not be here for fleeting connections, she could be part of the foundation of what's next. She may reflect a vision of how love, collaboration, or even your finances can evolve when rooted in mutual respect, rather than old stories of lack. There's a particular elegance in how she enters, quiet, graceful, yet impossible to forget. Think of her like the first breeze before a seasonal change. You don't see it coming, but you feel it in your skin, in your rhythm, in your readiness. And perhaps the most powerful shift she inspires isn't in your external world but in how you start to see yourself again. The colors surrounding you this week aren't accidental either. Wine red carries the boldness to step into visibility, to no longer hide your desires. It awakens courage that's been dormant. Meanwhile, pearl white reflects your return to innocence, not naivety, but clarity. A softness that comes when you stop fighting and start allowing. These tones are more than visual, they are energetic affirmations of what you're becoming. If your life has felt dry, stagnant, or disconnected, this woman doesn't come to fix it, she comes to remind you that you were never broken. She invites you back to the version of yourself who believed, who created, who trusted the pull of something greater. And that's where the thread weaves in a deeper truth. Sometimes, God doesn't bring us solutions. He brings us people. And through them, we remember who we are. So if someone appears this week and something inside you stirs, pause. Don't brush it off. Don't logic it away. Let your heart lean in. Maybe she's not just showing up in your path. Maybe she's the response to the silent prayer you whispered months ago in a moment of doubt. Stay open. Stay soft. Because when transformation walks through the door, it rarely knocks twice. Not every guide speaks loudly. Sometimes, the most powerful presences in our lives arrive in silence, wrapped in mystery, yet carrying a wisdom that stirs us on a level words cannot reach. This woman, represented by the energy of the High Priestess in the Tarot, is not someone who seeks attention or validation. She doesn't need to announce who she is, because her energy speaks for itself. You recognize her not through logic, but through a subtle resonance, a quiet knowing that blooms somewhere between your chest and your intuition. The High Priestess is the archetype of sacred stillness. She is a keeper of unspoken truths, a guardian of internal landscapes, and a mirror to the unseen. Her presence reminds us that what is hidden is not always lost. Some parts of us retreat not out of weakness, but to be preserved until the time is right to re-emerge. She holds the space where healing becomes possible not through action, but through awareness. She knows your story before you speak it, and she validates your wounds without needing to ask how they were formed. In astrology, this kind of presence parallels the depth of the lunar realm intuition, cycles, feminine wisdom, and emotional memory. And when we overlay this archetype on the transit of the week, we see how relevant she becomes. With Mercury activating Uranus, your mental landscape is ripe for insight. And yet, the High Priestess doesn't push information on you. Instead, she gently tilts the mirror so that you finally see what was always there: your quiet intelligence, your layered emotions, and your buried desires. She activates what was never truly asleep, only waiting for recognition. What makes this so powerful is that this woman, this guide, doesn't always appear as someone new. She might be someone you already know, someone who re-enters your life at the exact right moment. She might be a mentor, a message, or a conversation that lands differently now because you are ready. And in many cases, she is not someone external at all. She is a version of you. The version you pushed aside when you needed to survive. The version you silenced to fit in. She returns now, in dreams, in instincts, in subtle shifts in how you carry yourself. And when she returns, your life begins to shift, not because she tells you what to do, but because she reminds you of what you already know. Even in the stories of modern life, we see examples of this sacred return. How many people have turned a corner in their lives not through a grand intervention, but through one soft word at the right time? A single insight that unravels years of doubt. A woman who walks into your workplace and sees you not just your job title, but your spirit. A stranger who says something that confirms what you've been secretly praying for. It's not coincidence, it's timing. Divine, invisible timing. And if we draw from the teachings of faith, we see how many miracles were initiated not by noise, but by touch, by presence, by belief. Not all interventions come with lightning. Some come in quiet conviction. Just like the woman in Scripture who touched the hem of Jesus' robe, not speaking a word, but believing with her whole being. That moment wasn't about spectacle. It was about alignment. About readiness. That is the essence of the High Priestess. She does not arrive to prove herself. She arrives when you are ready to believe again in yourself. So if this week you feel drawn to someone, or you notice a quiet shift in your inner voice, pause. Don't dismiss it as small. The greatest awakenings often begin with whispers. Be still enough to hear them. Be open enough to receive them. And be brave enough to follow where they lead. Because this woman, whether she walks beside you or lives within you, isn't here to lead your journey. She's here to remind you that it's already begun. There are moments in life when the light doesn't just return, it reveals. And in the presence of that light, what once felt uncertain suddenly becomes undeniable. The appearance of the sun in your reading is more than just a sign of good fortune or external success. It is a cosmic affirmation that you've reached a turning point. After walking through shadow and silence, confusion and fatigue, this is the part of your journey where things begin to make sense. But more importantly, this is where you begin to feel like yourself again, not the version molded by survival, but the version aligned with joy, purpose, and vitality. This card doesn't show up as a reward for being perfect. It shows up when you've endured enough darkness to finally recognize what light means. It arrives when your nervous system, your heart, your spirit are ready to receive not just blessings, but clarity. The kind of clarity that can't be taught. It has to be lived. The sun invites you to shed the layers of overthinking, over-explaining, over-managing. You are allowed to experience ease. You are allowed to let life be brighter than it was before. From an energetic perspective, this is solar medicine. The sun is your center. It is your natural radiance returning after a long winter of doubt. And astrologically, it symbolizes the conscious self, the I am within you. When this energy lights up your field, you're not just being seen by the world, you're being illuminated from within. That illumination empowers you to say yes to what's real, and no to what no longer fits. This is an excellent time to give yourself permission to reclaim the parts of your life you thought were no longer possible. If you once dreamed of a path that felt too bold, too far, or too unrealistic, consider this your invitation to dream again. The clarity of this moment allows you to choose with intention instead of fear. Whether it's a shift in career, a financial opportunity, or the simple but profound return of emotional peace, the sun brings the message, the heaviness is lifting. On a more practical level, your body is asking to be nourished by this same brightness. After prolonged periods of stress, we tend to dim ourselves both energetically and physically. This is the perfect time to support your system through natural light, deep breathing, and gentle routines that rekindle your vitality. A short walk in morning sunlight, a pause to feel warmth on your skin, or 15 quiet minutes of solar meditation can shift your entire internal landscape. Support this rebalancing with nutrients like vitamin D3 and B12, not as fixes, but as reminders that your body, too, wants to feel alive and awake. There's a deeper invitation here, one that aligns with what many of us forget in the rush of daily living. You don't have to earn peace. You don't have to justify your joy. When the season changes, flowers don't apologize for blooming. The same is true for you. You're allowed to flourish simply because you are. If you feel emotional clarity rising this week, let it. If you feel the desire to clean out your space, restart a project, or laugh without reason, follow that impulse. This is the energy of life flowing through you again. It's sacred, but it's also simple. And sometimes, we find the greatest breakthroughs not in effort, but in allowing the light to return and choosing not to turn away from it. So ask yourself gently, what have I been denying myself that I'm now ready to welcome back? Write it down. Speak it softly. You don't need a plan just yet. All you need is a moment of honesty and the willingness to let joy in again. Because it's not just about what happens next. It's about who you finally remember you are when you let yourself shine. There are moments, even in the midst of light, when shadows still stretch quietly along the edges. After the warmth and clarity of the sun, the appearance of the reversed Seven of Swords is a gentle but firm reminder. Just because the path is opening doesn't mean every traveler you meet is meant to walk it with you. This card doesn't come to frighten, it comes to sharpen your discernment. It's an invitation to pause, to observe, and most of all, to trust the subtle signals within you that often whisper before they scream. This week, you may encounter someone or perhaps already have who seems compelling, charismatic, and even aligned with your dreams. They may offer promises that feel timely, appealing, or strangely familiar. But before rushing into agreements or aligning your energy too quickly, this card asks you to slow down. Listen not just to what is being said, but how it makes you feel. Is there a quiet tightening in your chest? A flicker of doubt you can't quite explain? Sometimes your intuition speaks not through words, but through sensations. The reversed Seven of Swords nudges you to honor those signals, even if they disrupt your desire to believe in the best of others. From an astrological perspective, the energies at play this week support both breakthrough and illusion. Uranus, the planet of surprises, can bring sudden clarity, but it can also usher in distractions cleverly dressed as destiny. Mercury, in conversation with Uranus, may heighten your curiosity, your thirst for innovation, and your mental agility. But that same speed can make you vulnerable to bypassing deeper evaluation. What looks exciting at first glance may be masking inconsistency, or worse, manipulation. And that's where this card becomes your ally. Not to make you fearful, but to make you conscious. In the landscape of self-healing and emotional growth, this card represents the places within us that still long for shortcuts or quick answers. It's human to want things to finally fall into place. But not all that glitters is gold, and not all who smile are sincere. That doesn't mean you need to close off or become suspicious. It means you are being asked to engage your power of discernment, not judgment. To observe motives. To ask one more question. To trust that your desire for something true doesn't have to be satisfied by something immediate. Think of it this way: your clarity is not a weakness, it's your compass. If your heart feels uncertain, you are allowed to step back and ask for more time. The law of attraction teaches that we are magnets for our inner truth. When you are grounded in your worth, you do not chase opportunity, you align with what's already aligned with you. The fear of missing out is often a test. Are you choosing from self-trust or from scarcity? You might want to take a few minutes today and write down 3 situations in your past that at first seemed risky, disruptive, or even disappointing, but later revealed themselves to be protection in disguise. Often, what feels like rejection is divine redirection. These reflections build not only wisdom, but confidence. They remind you that you've made it through confusion before, and you'll do it again. There's a quiet strength in recognizing when something isn't quite right, even if no one else sees it. And there's grace in choosing to wait, to reflect, to move only when your soul says yes. Let this card serve as a reminder: no external promise is more valuable than your own peace. You are not here to be rushed or persuaded. You are here to be guided by truth, by resonance, and most of all, by the unwavering compass within. Perhaps the most important moment in every journey is not when the miracle arrives, but when we decide we are finally ready to receive it. After revelations, warnings, and waves of clarity, the path now turns inward toward choice. You've walked through the uncertainty. You've met the light and faced the shadows. Now the question is no longer, when will it come, but, am I truly willing to allow it in? This is where destiny no longer dances in the distance. It stands at your door, waiting for a yes that only you can give. There's something sacred about asking yourself the right question at the right time. A question that doesn't demand answers, but instead unlocks something quiet and real within you. This part of your reading is not just reflection, it's activation. Because self-honesty, when spoken without shame, becomes power. And when you ask yourself if you're ready to leave the old behind and step into the life you've always whispered about, you are no longer waiting, you are choosing. From the perspective of cosmic timing, this week's energetic climate offers a potent gateway. Astrologically, the aspects are less about pushing forward and more about realigning with truth. You may feel the nudge to revisit old decisions, not to dwell in them, but to finally release their hold. Forgiveness for others, yes, but more importantly, for yourself is not weakness. It is the removal of energetic residue that no longer belongs in the future you are building. And sometimes, it is that simple act of self-forgiveness that clears the way for the exact opportunity you've been waiting for. In the practice of energy healing, especially within the lens of law of attraction, we understand that nothing activates manifestation faster than clarity plus emotional congruence. This means your desires, your words, and your feelings must begin to speak the same language. That's why a comment yes, even a short one like, "I'm ready to receive her and change my life," carries more weight than we often realize. You're not just engaging with content. You're anchoring your intention into the energetic field, and that field responds with precision. If you've ever noticed that your breakthroughs seem to arrive just after a moment of surrender, or just after you finally tell the truth to yourself, that's not coincidence. That's alignment. And this phase of your journey is all about that shift. No longer waiting for something to save you, no longer blaming the past, no longer proving your worth. Simply deciding, I'm ready now. I'm worthy now. I believe now. Take a breath and ask gently, what are you still clinging to that no longer supports your next chapter? What thought, habit, or belief do you know in your soul you've outgrown, but still carry out of familiarity? What would happen if, just for today, you laid it down not with judgment, but with reverence? As if you were releasing an old story with love, knowing it served you once but no longer needs to define you. This is what activation looks like. Not always dramatic. Not always visible. But deeply, undeniably real. You were not born to live in doubt. You were born to remember. To reclaim. And to rise. If something in this message resonates, don't keep it inside. Speak it. Write it. Declare it. Your voice is a vibration, and your willingness to express what you are ready for helps create the very conditions for its arrival. Not because you're forcing it, but because you are finally standing in agreement with it. And if you've read this far, Libra, it means a part of you already knows. She's not just coming. She's almost here. The real question is, will you be open when she arrives? Let that be the question you hold today. Not to pressure yourself, but to empower yourself. You've waited long enough. Let this be the week you stop waiting and start receiving. Maybe what we've really been waiting for all along wasn't her arrival but our own readiness to meet her. Libra, this journey has never been about someone coming to save you. It's always been about recognizing the divine timing in which you finally remember who you are, and allowing someone or something to hold the mirror steady long enough for you to see it. The woman we've spoken about today, the energy she carries, the role she plays, it's all deeply symbolic. She is a figure, yes, but more than that, she's an activation. A reflection. A signpost. And yet, none of it matters if you don't choose to answer the call. Because at the end of this message, the most powerful force in your life will not be the energy she brings, it will be the decision you make to align with it. So let me ask you, from a place of honesty and love, what part of you have you kept waiting behind the curtain of someday? What version of yourself have you postponed for when conditions are perfect, for when you're finally confident enough, healed enough, successful enough? What if that version is not waiting for conditions, but for your permission? The truth is, change doesn't require you to be fearless, it only requires you to be willing. Willing to be seen. Willing to ask. Willing to walk through the threshold even if your hands tremble just a little. What would happen if, just for today, you let go of the part of you that keeps rehearsing your past and instead stood fully in the possibility of your becoming? This is your reminder that you don't need to map out the entire path. You don't need to have every answer. You simply need to trust the next right step and take it. The light you're looking for may not come from her. It may come from how you choose to respond to her presence. She may say something that unlocks a truth in you, but it's your voice that will carry that truth forward. If today's message stirred something inside you, I invite you to write it down. Don't let the energy fade. Journal about the woman who's arriving, whether that's someone new, someone returning, or a version of yourself that's finally ready to re-emerge. Ask yourself gently, what would it look like to say yes to her and to the life she represents? And if you feel moved, write in the comments, I'm ready to receive her and change my life. It's not just a comment. It's a soul-level agreement with the universe. A declaration that you're open, aware, and ready to be guided by your own light. Before we go, let me say this from my heart, thank you for being here. For watching. For feeling. For allowing this message to reach you in the quiet ways that matter. Every like, every comment, every share, and every subscription is more than a number, it's a note in the chorus of this community we're building together here at Zodiac Whisper Tarot. Your presence is sacred, and your support is what allows these messages to keep flowing. So don't keep this to yourself. If you know someone who's been praying for a sign or waiting for a shift, share this video with them. Sometimes, we are the answer to someone else's silent prayer. And Libra, remember this, you don't need wings to be guided. You don't need a plan to begin. All you need is a willing heart, a curious soul, and a single moment of courage to say yes to the life that's been waiting for you all along. If today felt like that moment, then you already know. This is your time. This is your sign. And very soon, she will appear.